So we're starting to be able to put the traits, to sort of nail the traits down to their underlying biology. And with regards to neuroticism, well, if you're high in neuroticism, you're more sensitive to anxiety, and that's regulated at least in part by the hippocampus and generated in part by the amygdala. There's another part of the brain called the periaqueductal gray that seems to be associated with the experience of pain, and pain is quite a complex phenomena. Depression is pain-like, grief is pain-like, social isolation is pain-like, disappointment is pain-like. There's anxiety components to that too. And so neuroticism seems to be something like threshold for activation in those negative emotion systems. So if you're higher in neuroticism, 1 unit of uncertainty might produce, let's say, 3 units of psychophysiological response, whereas if you're lower in neuroticism, 1 unit of uncertainty might produce 1 unit of psychophysiological response. It's hard, obviously that's a simplified schemata, but there's variability because if something unexpected or threatening happens to you, it isn't obvious how upset you should get. One answer might be, brush it off, it's nothing. Another answer might be, it's a bloody catastrophe. And often when something uncertain or threatening occurs, you don't have enough information at your disposal to make a full determination of the potential import of the circumstance, especially if it's uncertain. And so then you have to guess at how upset you should be and where you are on the normal distribution with regards to trait neuroticism, say, that sort of determines what your guess on average is going to be. So, the other, with conscientiousness, say, you might say, well, how hard should you work? Well, that's a really difficult question. If you're going to die tomorrow, and then you probably shouldn't work very hard today at all. So one thing you might say is that the degree to which you should work hard is dependent on your assumptions about the stability of the future. We actually know this to be true because if you put people in wildly uncertain circumstances, they discount the future, which is exactly what you should do, right? It only makes sense to store up goods for future consumption if the future is likely to be very similar to the past and the present. You need a stable society for that. And conscientiousness only works in a stable society, because all you do otherwise, if you're piling up goods, which is kind of what conscientious people do, is leaving them there for the criminals to take, or waiting for the next chaotic upheaval to wipe out everything that you've stored. And so even conscientiousness is a kind of guess. Hardworking people say, well, sacrifice the present for the future. That's great, as long as the future is going to be there and you can predict it. But if it's not going to be there and it's unpredictable, then the right response is take what you can take right now while the getting's good. Now, obviously there are troubles with that too, and I'm speaking, I'm offering rough rules of thumb, but I'm trying to provide you with some indication of how and why these difference in value structures exist, because they're applicable in different environments. Sometimes in a dangerous social environment, it's not obvious that being an extroverted person is a good idea, because extroverted people, they stand out, especially if they're extroverted and creative, right? Because not only are they noisy and dominant and assertive, they're also colorful and flamboyant and provocative.
Se você gostou do vídeo, considere se inscrever no canal, dê aquela paulada no botão do like, compartilhe o vídeo, dance a Macarena, declame um poema, pelado. E não se esqueça de se hidratar. Até mais, fui!